So the first thing you want to think about is you place yourself at a vacuum table. We're going to be using this one. We can make sure that it is in fact plugged in, and it's not. So I think I saw, yeah, the cord's actually over by you. Thanks. So we plug it into this drop-down outlet. The switch is right here. And then the suction is either on, off, on, off. So we've got a place to work. We've got some table space here. I've got access to a roll of tape I'm going to need. I've got my good paper. I've got my film positives. I know I'm going to need some newsprint. Maybe I rip some sheets of newsprint off first. Otherwise, I'm going to be running back and forth to the newsprint dispenser. And I want to get everything ready. Once you put ink on screen, you have to start worrying about ink drying. So I don't want to put ink on screen until I've kind of got everything set up. I know I'm going to need spatulas. I'm going to need some mat board cards. I'm going to need to know what inks I'm doing. I want you to do your first layer with a light colored ink and your second line art layer with a dark colored ink. Doesn't matter what colors, okay? I'm going to start with a light color, and we have these gallons down here are old mixed ink that we had trouble finding a use for. So I'm going to, no, not that one. This one is probably dead. The lid wasn't secure. That one's just cottage cheese death ink, okay? So we will toss that one. Let's find a different one. Let's get this one. This is not as light as I might choose, but it'll work. Like blackberry ice cream. Yeah, blackberry ice cream. So I got my ink. I'm going to need to know what spatula, I'm sorry, not spatula, squeegee I'm using. There's a few thoughts on squeegees. Your squeegee must be larger than your image by a minimum of 2 inches on each side of the image. So you find the furthest points of the image and set the squeegee there, and you want at least 2 inches of squeegee blade past the image. Minimum. You can go a bit larger than that, but you wouldn't want to grab a really giant squeegee like one this big to do this image, right? The bigger the squeegee, the harder it is to press hard enough, and this would start wanting to print this side and or hit the frame. So this would be inappropriately large, okay? We want as small a squeegee as we can do with a minimum of 2 inches on either side. So we've got our squeegee, and I'll talk about how to use it in a little bit. First thing we need to do is we need to get it locked in to the clamps. There are a lot of different clamps that are on different tables in the shop. Some are like this, that have a floating plate at the base of this threaded post. Some are like this, where there is a welded washer. Notice this free floats, so it can stay stationary when I turn this. The welded washer does not. It turns with the post. Sometimes these plates fall off and get lost. When that happens, we might weld another washer on. nonetheless, in all the three of these cases, I'm going to want a mat board card beneath each of those before I tighten them. Okay, so I place those in, and I place the screen in there so it's meeting all three, but I've also centered the screen more or less to the vacuum table top. And then I tighten these. You'll see the ones that with the welded washers, it might start to get tight. You usually have to tighten these a little bit more than the rest, okay? Then the test is grab it here and pull. If the table starts to move, you're good. If the screen slips out, you're not good, okay? If this starts to slide out while you're printing, you'll lose your registration, and that's a big problem. So it's really important when you're getting set up that the screen is tight in there. It ain't going nowhere. Now we're going to do what we call off-contact printing. That means that if this is the screen and this is your paper, when the screen is at rest, we want about a 1/4 inch of space between those two. So as the squeegee passes on top of the screen, we want to see the screen fabric do this. Go down, make good contact with the paper, and then pop back up. We don't, when you're printing on paper, you don't want these to be in perfect contact. We want that 1/4 inch, about a 1/4 inch of space, so that after the squeegee's done, they separate. If they do not separate, that will cause something called screen burn or kiss. It will cause irregularities in the surface of the ink. You'll see that plenty. So to accomplish that, now this particular screen is getting a little old, and you can see that it's torqued. So this corner right here is already about 3/4 of an inch above. Here it's in contact. That's okay. I'm still going to be able to press down here plenty to make good contact with the paper. Now, because the first layer I'm going to print is on the side that's poking up, I could probably forego any mat board cards that would push it up. When I print this one over here, I'm probably going to need to add mat board cards. I would say 3 or 4 mat board cards packaged together like that. I tape them together, and I tape them to the underside of the screen, usually dead center. And you'll see that pushes it off a little bit. Your screen will probably not be this torqued, okay? I chose this partly because it is torqued and I wouldn't have to give it to somebody else. But you can test that by like, okay, do I have that little bit of space there between the fabric and the table? And am I going to be able to press on the squeegee to make sure that the screen does make good contact while I'm using the squeegee? Another thing I got to do is you can see that here, when I was coating the screen, I failed to fill this strip of fabric right there. So I have a bit of screen area there that is open. I have 2 options if I do that. Option 1 is fill that with emulsion at the same time I fill the pinholes. That works great. You can just put a dab of emulsion in one end and just take the mat board card and go all the way down. Blow dry it, it gets cured with the light, you're good. Or option number 2 is cover it now with packing tape. For that, I really need it to be with packing tape. It will not work with the blue painter's tape. And the way to do that is cut a bit of a generous piece. And to make it easier to pull off later, I'm going to fold the tab at least one end. And I'm going to hold it like this. And make sure that area is covered. I'm really only going to burnish down the side of the tape that's facing the image. Because if I burnish everything, it's going to get much harder to pull off. Okay? If you're putting packing tape on your screen like this, this is where you really want to only use that 3M perfectly clear brand of packing tape. The cheaper brands that are a little cloudy and thinner, they leave a glue residue on the screen when you try to pull it off later. Now even so, while I'm printing this, I have a good 6 inches of space between the two layers. So in theory, I could probably print this without worrying about getting ink in this image. But in practice, that happens pretty easily. So the way I'm going to solve that is I'm going to rip a piece of newsprint and fold it in half. And I'm going to set it so that it just covers that image. Just barely covers that image. Now, over that newsprint, I am not going to be passing the squeegee. The squeegee will be operating over here. So I can use the blue tape just as a way to hold everything down. But this way, any spatter of ink, if it flies over here, instead of drying in my image over here, it'll land on the newsprint. Okay? Go ahead and stop printing.